Okay, so there's a final thing here that I want to talk about, and we touched on it a little bit in the previous business chapters, and that is personal work. Now, to me and to a lot of other successful photographers I know, personal work is a huge, huge part of their business, and it's something that can take you from being a kind of mediocre photographer to a very successful photographer. So let's discuss what is a personal project. And to me, a personal project is something that you do because you have complete creative control. You're creating photos or art around a subject that you personally love, and there's no real client connection. There might be money that comes in down the road, but the whole reason you're doing it is because you love the craft or you love the subject. So I'm going to tell you about a few personal projects that I've worked on and the crazy paths that they've led me down. So I'm just going to start in order. Now, the first real personal project that I did was my Architecture of Iceland series, and that's actually an ongoing series that I've been working on for like 6 or 7 years now. And every year, every other year, I will go to Iceland and I will photograph the architecture of that country, which I think is wonderfully unique. It's like nowhere else in the world. Iceland right now is kind of a hotbed for landscape photography, and it's almost kind of like a dead horse that's been beaten too much. But nobody has really focused on the architecture of Iceland. So I thought, wouldn't it be amazing to kind of showcase that architecture, which is so unique? They have an incredible landscape, an incredible climate, and the architecture has sort of evolved in a way that isn't seen in North America or Europe or where most of my normal clients are. Now, it might seem like, oh, I'm a photographer, I don't have money to go crazy and spend all this money going gallivanting around Iceland. Well, when I did my first personal project, it was a little bit of a Hail Mary. I had about $4,000 or $5,000 to my name across all my investments and all my bank accounts. I was just getting started as a photographer, and I was like, man, how can I get the attention of the clients I really want to work for? And I made that big, pretty ballsy investment to fly myself to Iceland for 2 weeks, make exactly the images that I wanted to make, and that way I could then use those pictures to market to the clients that I wanted to get. And because I didn't really have any money, I did it cheap. I slept in the back of a car, I stayed in hostels, and I remember sleeping with my camera strap around my arm in a hostel. I mean, Iceland isn't exactly a high crime area, but you never know. Stuff like that, and I remember having gas station burgers for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it was such an adventure, and I really feel like not only did my portfolio grow, but I really grew as a person as a result of that, and I'm able to handle a lot tougher situations now than I was before that whole thing happened. Other than the portfolio use and a couple print sales here and there, I haven't really cashed in big time on this project yet, and it is more of a much longer game thing. While it has helped me to get some clients, I've even picked up a client in Iceland as a result of it. The real end game here is to have an almost complete sort of archive of the wonderfully interesting architecture of Iceland. And I want to put that into a book, which I can sell. I can do an art show that I can release, and I can sell prints. And it's just, for right now, it's just an ongoing thing that, again, keeps getting me new clients, keeps my portfolio fresh, gets me out, gets me traveling, and kind of refreshes my creative energy. Now, I'm not saying that you need to go do Iceland, but I need you to find something that you are passionate and interested about. And it might be worth it to, again, get on a plane, rough it for a bit, spend a couple grand on it, and make some amazing images that you're super proud of. So another personal project, this time that isn't really related to architecture, has to do with recreating a Pan Am 747 and filling it out with people in period costumes and serving the food from the airline's menu back in the day. So I actually met a guy who considers himself an airline historian who has been collecting airline parts, and he keeps them stockpiled in a warehouse, and he's been building his own plane, and it sounds totally crazy. And believe me, it didn't really make any sense until I saw it either. But he brought me over and he showed me his sort of memorabilia and his trinkets and all this stuff. And he's been recreating the interior of a Pan Am 747. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be amazing if we filled this thing up with 20 or 25 people wearing costumes and period outfits from the day. And we took the menu and we recreated it, and we basically embodied the spirit of airline travel in the 70s and created these new advertisements for it. And he's like, that's an amazing idea, but it sounded like a pipe dream. And what happened was, over the course of a few months, we made multiple visits to the site. We went out to the plane boneyards in Mojave, and we bought the right parts and the right seats, and we put this whole thing together. We eventually cast like 20 or 25 people to dress up as passengers and stewardesses, and we had the stewardesses' outfits that we bought on eBay from the 70s, and it was just this crazy thing. And to do all these things was very expensive. Together, we split the whole project, and it cost like well over $10,000. I think it was like 13 grand to do the whole thing. And we had the airline catering, like the scissors trucks that put the catering in the plane. We had those drive out to the warehouse, and they were unloading like Chateaubriand and filet mignon and like all the tarts and the alcohol. And we had the thousands of dollars of airline catering. And what happened was, we released the photos, and it went viral like beyond anything I could have imagined, right? This is my most viral project to date, and while I don't think it has directly made me any money, like I can't point to my PayPal account and say, look at all the money from this. What it did do was it went so viral that my SEO just went through the roof. I think I got a few 100,000 unique page hits in just 1 week off of this project, and every couple months it'll go viral again, and it's like, you won't believe what this photographer did, or you won't believe this guy who keeps an old plane in his backyard, and it just has gone on and on and on. So every few months I get an interesting bump from that, and then people are like, they see my architecture portfolio and they're like, oh, you're the Pan Am photo guy, and I'm like, yeah. So even though that did not have a direct financial payoff, what ended up happening was there were so many links out there that led to my website. Every time those photos got posted, Google would send traffic my way, and as a result, I just rose in the search ranks. When you search architectural photographer, I think almost anywhere in the world you are, Mike Kelly will come up on the front page of Google, and it's like projects like that which keep sending traffic to my website. Even if it's moderately unrelated, they keep going, and I have my site built out so it says architectural photographer, and the spikes were huge. So you can get a ton of traffic directed to your sites through those viral projects. One interesting thing about that shoot is I had honestly never shot people in my life before that, and I had never done a production that size before. So when you have potential clients who can see that you can handle a production with 20 or 25 cast members, and you have craft services trucks, and you are renting a warehouse, and you're paying $1,200 a day for AC, it really, again, it elevates your brand. It makes you look, honestly, much more legit than you may be when you show these giant productions on your portfolio. So that's 2 personal projects that didn't really make me a ton of money, but did a lot to add to my brand. Now let me talk about a personal project that was completely free and made me a ton of money. So like, this is again tied into the whole aviation theme. You know, I love planes, I'm a huge dork. So I actually had an idea to go sit at Los Angeles Airport for a day and photograph every plane that took off. It's actually kind of a variation of my architectural photography techniques. You know, and I'll sit out there for 2 or 3 hours, and we'll do the flash painting in the sunset, and we'll combine different times of day to make one final image. Well, I was like, what if I combined every plane that took off into one shot? And so I did that, and I just, not really even thinking that it was going to go crazy viral, I put it on Reddit. Now, I'm sure if you're on the internet and you own this tutorial, you might have an idea of what Reddit is. Anyway, it became so popular on Reddit overnight, went to the front page, top of the front page, and that photo just changed my life. And it really got me set up with fine art print sales and everything, and that photo has propagated throughout the world so many times over. That is basically just as viral, maybe if not more, I haven't really kept track, as the Pan Am thing, but this one comes along with the bonus of print sales. So every time that goes viral, which happens every month or so as well, it's like, we won't believe what this photographer did when he hung out at the airport for 8 hours, or whatever stupid headline they come up with. It goes viral again, and I sell some prints, and it's just residual income coming on the back of that. Now, not only am I making money on the prints, but there's also a lot of magazines and books that want to use this image. For example, I've had it in like school textbooks. I've had it on the cover of a fine art book. It's been in magazines all over the world. It's been in newspapers. It's been in advertisements. Really, really interesting stuff. And I can, again, not just sell prints, but I can sell licenses to all these different companies who want to use that image. It's kind of like the gift that keeps on giving now. Wouldn't it be amazing if I could have a whole catalog of images like that I could sell over and over? And I was like, why don't I double down on this and reinvest some of that money and expand this project to other cities? So what I did was I took about $30,000, and over 3 or 4 months, I actually went to basically every continent. I was in Brazil, I was in Europe, I was in Asia, I was in Australia, New Zealand, and other cities in America, and I did the same type of photo, same concept. I made it a little different for each market, and as you can see, I've just basically franchised this photo and expanded it all over the world. And knowing how successful that first one was, I'm hoping that these other images as well will have the same impact. As a result of that photo, I've kind of been known in like the airline industry as that guy who made the picture of all the planes taking off at LAX. And so I've had airlines and airports contact me, like Emirates Airline, for example, wanted me to do the same photo for their airline. So I was in Dubai, and I was out, you know, behind closed doors on the tarmac at Dubai International Airport, shooting these amazing pictures that no one could really get access to. I did the same thing in Los Angeles again, and I can use those unique access spots to create images that nobody else really has, which again adds to that value as a fine art photographer, so I can sell those really interesting prints and make money from that as well. The final personal project that has kind of become an ongoing thing for me is aerial photography. Now, you know I love aviation, and you know I love architecture, so I was like, why don't I combine the two? I wonder if there's a way to get into shooting aerial photography for real estate or architects or developers. And so the way I got into this was I was like, I want to make a portfolio of aerial images of skyscrapers, of buildings in LA, of the coastline, things that I can sell to, again, like I said, real estate agents, developers, because they're sometimes always looking for aerial images of their projects. So I hired a helicopter pilot and I took one flight, and it so turns out that I got some cool pictures of houses and of buildings and so on, but the landscapes that I shot, the kind of very graphic images of the city of LA, I fell in love with. And what initially started as this thing that was solely going to be an architectural related project ended up turning into this love affair with photographing Los Angeles from above. And so I kept hiring this helicopter pilot and going out, and rather than actually photographing houses or buildings for money, I was just doing it because I loved it. I loved creating these really artistic images of the city. And after maybe 5 or so flights, I was like, man, I have this body of work. I got to do something cool with these pictures. I knew I wanted to create a book, and I kind of pitched the idea to publishers, and honestly, the art book publishing world is a little bit weird. I don't really understand it, and it's very difficult to break into apparently. So I was like, damn it, I'm doing a Kickstarter. I'm doing it myself. I've come this far. How hard can it possibly be? So I ended up doing a Kickstarter campaign, and this book here is the result of those efforts. And I want to say the Kickstarter was pretty successful. We broke the funding goal by a very good margin. And at the end of all this, I have a book that I'm super proud of. It's one of a kind, handmade, all locally done, and I was able to basically create the project of my dreams as a result of this personal work. And even though I didn't make a ton of money, I recouped all the flights on the helicopter costs, and I recouped the money for the book. But at the end of this, like, I have a book which again elevates my brand, and people see that on my website and they're like, wow, like, he's got a book out, he's been doing these amazing projects. And I've got this, again, huge body of work of artistic aerial imagery, which adds a lot of value to my brand. So in addition to the book, I now have all those files that I can sell as prints. And so that is, again, another source of residual income. Even when I'm not working, I might sell a print, and it is really nice to get a few $100s or even a few $1,000s for a big print sale. So I've got a book, I've got print sales out of that, and I have all this experience creating aerial photography, which is another perk that I can offer to my clients. All right, so that's a quick look at my personal projects, but I think this is so, so important. It adds so much to your brand, and it really lets you complete your dream assignments. I would say don't wait for the clients to come to you. If there is a job that your dream job, a job you really want to shoot, don't wait for your clients to hire you. Go make it happen yourself. It will do so much for you as a person, so much for your brand. It's going to teach you a lot about photography, a lot about art, a lot about production, and it's going to expand your skill set into genres that you might not usually shoot. So even though it might be a little bit scary to do this, it's basically just a form of reinvesting in your business. And how do businesses grow? Well, a lot of them reinvest their profits into themselves to reach the next tier of a market, to expand into a new market. It's really super important to, come up, you gotta have a good idea. Sit down, do a little brainstorming, come up with something you think is super interesting, and gamble on it, and you'll never know what's gonna happen. And some of the personal projects you do may even be close to free. Like, I spent the day at an airport, and at this point it's made me almost $100,000 in returns. Now, each time I took a risk and did one of these personal projects, I came back, and it seemed like my career had elevated. I was able to charge more. I could point to this production and say, look what I can handle. I can charge you more for that. And even if I lost the job, I still had some residual income from the print sales, for example, or the book sales. So doing these projects is a great way to pad your income, kind of increase your stature as a photographer, and find more higher paying work.